Hey guys, welcome back. This is going to be probably the last update on my how to make a BJD videos that I've been making over the past couple years. It's been 2 years now and a lot has changed and I have a lot to show. So let's get into it. So here is Mini Jenny since I last worked on her. I've not worked on her in a very long time, but I'll show you what I have done since the last video. Since the last video, I have increased her arm peanut just a little bit. And each arm, I've made the top of her thighs and the bottom of her calves a lot thicker. And made it to where she can sit very elegantly. I've thickened the neck and I've remolded the eyes to where they're more of a sad, pouty way. Going to the back of her, oh, her faceplate came off. I've sanded down that line I was talking about. It's still not super smooth, but it's a lot better. There's her legs from the back. She's single jointed in her knees. And then I also began her hands and feet, but I have not actually worked on sculpting them. And there's her foot to go on there. They're great proportions. I absolutely love how she turned out. But I have kind of put her on the back burner and started a new project. And before I show you the new project that I've started, which if you followed my Instagram, you've already seen it. I want to show you where I've came from and the direction that I'm going. So those who have been with me since the beginning recognize Phoebe. She is a moon rock inspired BJD inspired by Saturn's moon, Phoebe. She is made of oven-baked polymer clay, and she is coated with a very rough epoxy that I just never sanded down, hence why I turned her into a moon rock character. And I gave her an acrylic paint face up with some clay eyes, and I gave her a wig cap, and that's all I ever did with her. Once I finished her, I moved on to a second project that is sadly no longer with me. I did toss that project as just too many pieces were broken, and at that time I didn't have enough sculpting experience. I just did not think that it was worth keeping, and I'm kind of sad that I threw it away because now I can't show that progress. But if you do go back to my first video, you'll see her there. That was the original Genesis. After the original Genesis came Mini Jenny, which I've been working on for a very long time if you've kept up with me from the beginning. The next doll that I started was, I was taking a short break from Mini Jenny and I sculpted this head. And I ended up going for a demon-esque character, like kind of scary looking smile. Her name is Demora. And originally it was just going to be a head, and then I figured out how to sculpt double chins, and I was like, I'm going to make a realistic chunky girl body. So I started a body for Demora, but it just turned out way too big, and not way too big as in like she's too like plus size or whatever, but I mean like I was going for a MSD size girl, and she is literally the size of Marcus. Like this torso is bigger than Marcus's torso, and her limbs would have been longer, if not as long as Marcus. And so I kind of just gave up on her. The head I do want to finish, but the body I have just kind of given up on. Here's a back view. Very rudimentary sculpting. I chucked this one up to being a basic practice body. And Demora and her body were also made out of polymer oven bake clay. The next doll that I sculpted was literally just a head. This is Ducky. I fully intended to start a body for Ducky, but I just never did. So I'm thinking of just using Ducky as like an alternative head for Mini Jenny. And just like, you know, she's got this body, but it's a duck head. But yeah, I never did finish Ducky. I did paint her to look like a duck, and once I painted her, I was like, that's kind of where it's gonna stop for now. She's a very ugly head cap that I've just never neatened up. But that's Ducky. Ducky was the last doll that I made out of polymer clay. Which brings us to this doll face. He was the first doll that I've tried to sculpt using air dry clay. He was mostly practice as his proportions, like his mouth is way too far down and his eyes and nose are just way too far up. Like, he is solely practice, and he's kind of a little creepy looking, but he's cool, and he's got teeth. Creepy but cool. I never went any farther than this for him. I never made it like a head back or anything. I just sculpted this face to learn how to use air dry clay. And he was solely made out of air dry clay. So that's where I've been with my sculpting adventures lately. And now it's time for me to show you the new project that I've been working on that I started back in April. I am super duper proud of where she's at so far, and I do hope to finish her completely. And I know I've said that about every other doll that I've started, but I've actually gotten farther with this next project than I ever have. This is Dandelion. Dandelion is a BJD that I started about 2 months ago, back in April, to kind of match my own body proportions, but also to have like aesthetically pleasing appearance. Her joints are butterflies, and they work super well. I have a bunch of refining to do still. And I'm gonna go over how I made these joints and how I've been going about making Dandelion, because I made her entirely out of air dry clay. And that kind of will come into play with why I haven't been posting much at all on YouTube really, and as to why I haven't really continued Miss Mini Jenny. Oh my gosh, her eye. But yeah, this is Dandelion. Here she is from the side. And here she is from the back. So allow me to backpedal just a second. Something I said was incorrect. She is not 100% air dry clay, but she is 95% air dry clay. The base of her torso and the base of her head were made with the last of my polymer clay, oven baked clay. But there was no features. It was literally just like a big potato shape and then a little circular shape that I used tinfoil to hollow out the insides. It was super thin, and then I cut out that very thin clay and then started sculpting on top of that. But other than that, everything is air dry clay. The arms, the legs are all air dry clay. All of her features are air dry clay. But yeah, I just needed to fix that for a second. Going on to how I actually went about sculpting these joints and the doll itself, details were all just hand sculpted using just whatever I had. Brushes, I have this little nail cuticle pusher thing. I have this Xacto knife and a couple other blades. What I would do was I formed the joint shape, 2 balls, and then I smoothed them together. And then before the air dry clay dried, while it was still wet, I took the end of the brush and I pushed it through the center of the joint, which did misshapen it a little bit, but before it dried, I smoothed it back out, and that gave me the hollow joints. And I did that with everything. I just used different sized brushes for that, and the big thigh joints were literally just like pinch pots, but with an open bottom. I did the same with these joints. I sculpted the joint, I pushed a paintbrush through the center, and then allowed it to dry. And then to make these cohesives pieces, like to make them all fit, I sculpted this, I let it dry, and then I put clay here and mushed it into the shape. I separated them, allowed it to dry, and then I did the same with the bottom. I put wet clay, pushed the pieces together, separated it, allowed it to dry, and then they'll need a lot more refining, of course, but that's how I got my basic shapes and how I got for them to sit flush together. Same with the elbow joints. For this, I added a little piece that can catch this and let her sit back without gapping. And then I sculpted the base of the head around the neck once the neck was dry. And I'm trying to think of anything else that I'm forgetting. I have not sculpted hands or feet yet. Those are going to be coming soon once I get the length of the legs right. Just this morning, I cut off the top portion of her thighs because they were too long. And I've marked in pencil where I'm going to be cutting so she can sit, because like right now her leg can't go past that. But I'm going to be cutting grooves so that way her leg can go all the way and sit. I've also got marked where I'm going to shorten her arms because her arms are now way too long in comparison with her legs and her torso. So I'm going to shave off about that much probably from the arm on both sides, and they'll sit nicely. I'm very quickly going to do a comparison of her size between the dolls I've previously sculpted and between some of my other dolls that I did not make, just so you can get an idea for how big she is, because at first when comparing her to Demora's body, it looked like I was running into the same problem of she's gonna be too big, but I actually somehow avoided that. There's Phoebe and Dandelion. Here is Dandelion and Mini Jenny. Here is Demora and Dandelion. Ducky and Dandelion side by side. The unnamed lad and Dandelion. Here is Dandelion next to 45 centimeter Akagi Ban. Here she is next to 60 centimeter Bobobi Apollo. And here she is next to Sleepy Sheepy Dreams Sheepy, which I believe is 38 centimeters. And here is Demora next to YB Dolls Bomb. So that's where I've been. All of my attention has just been thrown into Dandelion, and surprisingly, this is only about 2 months of work. I've only been working on her since like, I think it was April 12th I started posting about her on my Instagram, which was the same day I started making her. And at that time, it was literally just a torso. I had no anticipation of sculpting a full doll. I just was messing around with some clay, and I really loved how the torso came out, so I decided to try and really stick with it. So if I make any more progress on her, I'll try to post a video about it, but I make no promises at this point. I'm going to consider this a wrap-up of my How to Make a BJD series. It hasn't been super duper informative, but I hope that what I've done has helped you out some. And if you want to see more of what I'm up to and more constant updates of Dandelion, follow me on Instagram at Macy is sleeping, and I will see all you guys over there or in another video in the future. For anyone curious, this is what she looks like unstrung. This is my workstation. I have her on a little tray so no pieces can fall off. I have all of the tools that I use kind of off to the side. That's what the elastic and the yarn I use to help string her. There's the wigs I try on her head to make sure they look good. And this is my clay water and my air dry clay that I keep in here so it doesn't dry out. See you guys next time. Bye. Also, I totally didn't mean to stack my dolls like this, but they're all just kind of chilling watching me in the video. Okay, bye.